Hi there, and welcome back to another episode from the Resolute Life. If you're tuning in for the very first time, a heartfelt welcome to you. This could be the beginning of something transformative. A life rich in purpose, fulfillment, achievement, connection, and true resilience. A life lived with different values and principles. If you've been journeying with us through other videos, podcasts on Spotify or Apple, or reading our blog or social content, I hope they've given you meaningful insight and nourishment for your personal growth. If today's video, or any of our content, speaks to your heart and inspires you to move closer to the life you've always envisioned, don't keep it to yourself. Share it. Invite others into this experience with you. After all, no one is meant to walk this path alone. Before we dive in, a quick note. Everything in this video is rooted in the teachings of the daily life of resolute beings. Live with intent. You can find the book on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or directly on our website. And of course, hit that subscribe button so you'll be the first to know when we release new content. Today we are to talk about the 5 dimensions of human existence, and how the Resolute Life supports your holistic development. Humans are complex beings. We are all well aware that there are different aspects to who we are, and that we are made up of different parts. Throughout history, many religions and philosophies have classified these different aspects a bit differently. In the book, The Daily Life of Resolute Beings Live with Intent, we identify 5 distinct dimensions, namely the physical, the mental, the emotional, the spiritual, and the social dimensions. All humans have these 5 dimensions as common. We share the same structure. But the individual composition and distinctive patterns in the interactions between these dimensions make every human unique. No two humans have exactly the same dimensional pattern, with exactly the same interdimensional dynamics. Let's unpack these dimensions in more detail. The first dimension is the physical dimension. The body is the basic tool for the functioning of the human being, and its interaction with the outside world. This dimension relates to the physical features of our being, which includes matters like physical health, but also the physical elements of our life like financial health and time management. Examples of the basic needs we have in the physical dimension include food, water, air, sleep, exercise, clothing, shelter, and money. The second dimension is our mental dimension. This is our intellectual side and represents our cognitive processes. Humans have a predisposition to understand, to seek knowledge. This dimension relates to our capacity to learn, create, and transform our own reality and build future states of being. Examples of the basic needs we have in the mental dimension include cerebral stimulation and positive mental states. The next dimension is our emotional dimension. This is the psychological aspect of our existence. This dimension is characterized by elements such as emotions and personality. It is this part of us that reacts sentimentally to events within our environment. Examples of the basic needs we have in the emotional dimension include safety, acceptance, love, and happiness. The fourth dimension is the spiritual. This is the mystical dimension that transcends the physical, and refer to phenomena that go beyond what we can explain. This dimension relates to our intuition that we are all connected somehow, and there is a greater purpose and/or higher power. Examples of the basic needs we have in the spiritual dimension include meaning, self-actualization, and oneness with all living things. The fifth and last dimension is our social dimension. Humans are social beings. We are born with a predisposition to relate to other humans, to generate effective bonds, and to organize into group and societies. This is the part of us that crave interaction with others. It relates to our complex dealings with other human beings. Examples of the basic needs we have in the social dimension include human interaction, caring relationships, and belonging. It is important to note that the dimensions are interdependent. Harm to one dimension often leads to damage in another. For example, if we perceive the world as an unsafe, unloving place, which indicates damage to our emotional dimension, it will lead to stress-related health problems, which is damage to our physical dimension. Equally, if we suffer a debilitating physical injury, damage to our physical dimension, it could mean long periods in a hospital away from your loved ones, which harms our social dimension. And this isolation could perhaps lead to depression, a decline in the emotional dimension. The great news is that the reverse is also true. Growth in one dimension will inspire growth in other dimensions. For instance, living with a sense of meaning, which shows growth of the spiritual dimension, will lead to successful management of threatening situations, which refer to health in the emotional dimension, and improved human interaction, which is the social dimension, all of which would reduce stress, the physical dimension. This progressive cycle of holistic dimensional growth is exactly what the principles of the Resolute Life seek to promote. But how exactly do the 3 principles of a resolute life correspond with the 5 dimensions of human existence? The 3 principles support the growth various dimensions differently. Let's take a closer look. The first principle, live with intent, deals with the meaning of life and your individual purpose, and therefore supports the growth of the spiritual dimension. The second principle, be resourceful, helps you maximize your physical, emotional, mental, and social resources. Our social dimension is developed by the third principle, focus on others. These are the principles that primarily support the different dimensions. However, since the principles and the dimensions are interdependent, the development of your depth in the dimensions are also influenced by other principles in an indirect way. For example, the third principle also supports the emotional dimension due to improved human relationships. The first principle also supports the mental dimension by gaining understanding about our past and future. The second principle supports our spiritual and social dimensions by increasing our resources and allowing us additional time and money to spend on ourselves and others. Now that we know the 5 dimensions and how they link to the 3 principles of the Resolute Life, in the upcoming week, develop a keen awareness of the 5 dimensions. In every moment, every interaction, identify which dimension or dimensions are triggered, and if the situation is growing or harming these dimensions. When you eat, focus on which dimension you are engaging. Perhaps if you are eating with others and engaging in conversation, you might be engaging several dimensions. What about when you are in a meeting at work, or when you are playing sports with your friends, or when you attend church or mosque? Start identifying ways in which you can develop your dimensions so that you can holistically grow your entire being. Thank you so much for joining us today. Remember to subscribe and to share this video with others. Check out other content on our website, socials like LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, podcasts on Spotify and Apple. Remember that we also have a WhatsApp channel that shares daily inspirational messages. And if you have not done so yet, get your copy of the Daily Life of Resolute Beings Live with Intent today. In next week's video, we will learn to use our heads and our hearts for deep, meaningful life change. Until next week, live resolutely,